Hey y'all, Brett here again. Spectating and speculating. I guess this is going to be the fourth upload for this particular playlist when I get around to getting done with it. I want to talk about pay to play, kind of the pay to play ethic within the business of performing live music in various kinds of venues, because I've been doing it for a really long time, since about 1978, and I've done it all around the country. I've played out in California, Texas, Florida, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, New York, Massachusetts, on an island off the coast of Portland, Maine, as well as in Korea, South Korea, when I was living over there for 4 years. Basically, anywhere I've ever lived, I've sought out creative people to hang with, or at least to meet. I like interesting people. You know, there are all kinds of ways that people can go out and perform their music. You can do it in schools, you can do it in churches, you can do it in parks, if they let you. You can do it in bars, you can do it in art galleries, you can do it in restaurants, and you can do it in larger venues of all sorts that are more suited for huge crowds and stuff like that. And those are the kind of places I perform music in over the years. And, generally if you're playing in a park, if you've been invited to play in a park, you're going to get paid by the city that runs the park. And if you're playing in a bar, if it's a bar with any decency whatsoever, you'll at least go home and not have spent a penny on what it took you to get there and play the gig and get home. And if they're cooler than that, they feed you and keep you from getting thirsty while you're there too. But anyways, pay to play. So I've encountered pay to play in various places, and venues that, and this is usually bars and clubs, and sometimes restaurants that have a stage in them. It's very, very hard when you live in small town America, and even in big cities, to get paid to play, unless, of course, you are, as I've said before, kind of economically independent. In other words, you've got an agent who's making sure these things are going to work out for you and setting you up places to stay and your travel and so forth. Or if you're just simply a wealthy person, or a famous person who doesn't have to worry about the costs of things, as well as the means of getting from place to place, like that. And of course, I've always had to take travel into concern, and lodging and food, and I sell my own stuff. I've always, since about 1983, I've had some sort of record company, as it were, or music business, that started off releasing stuff on homemade cassette tapes and went all the way through to CDs. I'll try to remember to post a picture of the CD archive that I have here. I'm not going to take pictures of all the cassettes. They're in an apothecary cabinet, scores of them. But anyways, when I was a kid, not even 20 years old yet, playing in clubs and things, you might get paid $300, $350 to play a Friday and Saturday night for about 3 hours a night. They'd feed you, they'd give you pitchers of beer to keep you going, and that was a very long time ago. 40 years ago, I could get paid $175. A portion of it anyways, in a band, and not get thirsty. And this would be, local college gigs, towns that have a whole bunch of little venues here and there for the college crowd. By the time I got out to California a couple years later, I began to hear about this pay to play where you literally, I also heard about it in Boston, where the club that you're going to play at gives you the tickets in advance and you have to sell the tickets, right? And that's how you make your money, presuming you don't have any merch to sell and kind of push it along in that way. I never thought that was cool, because I really believe that if an artist provides a suitable image that can be used promotionally, that the place that stands to make the money that night should do the promoting. And I know, the whole DIY ethos, a lot of folks, think about the band The Minutemen, for example. They took they shouldered most of the work themselves. They took most of the responsibility for things getting done and, held themselves accountable for how well that went and stuff, rather than being flung around by some clown. And they did good. They did great. Mike Watt's still doing great. I'm sort of a merger of the DIY ethos plus a certain standard of respect that musicians were paid when I was a college kid, way up on the top of New York State in Potsdam, same campus that has the Crane School of Music on it. The venues in a town that has a music school typically pay better. It makes sense. I've been in a number of bands over the years that got paid to play. Hipbone was one of them. The Bo Clevis Project was one of them. The band of Rats only performed once, but we got paid pretty good for it. And some other bands over the years. Out in Reedsville, on occasion, we get paid to play out there. I've been paid to play at various festivals and, street festivals and local events that happen in parks and stuff like that where they have music going on. Played in a lot of different types of situations. I don't like this pay to play. I think that's terrible. And so I'm just going to put my foot down with this first thing and say I just think that it is the responsibility of the venue, seeing as their region is where most of the people that would come are coming from, so they have a greater likelihood of knowing the kind of folks to contact than somebody from another state would. I think pay to play is a really bad paradigm, and I don't accept it. And I've made a lot of not friends, as it were, because I hold to that, but that's just the way it's going to go. I'll say, no, I'm not playing for free. Any more than a plumber you don't know is going to come fix a pipe for free. It's just not going to happen. It's a work day, okay? In addition to pay to play, I want to talk about this whole horrible licensure violation and fines and fees and stuff that can be levied against venues which haven't paid for that kind of licensure. And I personally think it's obscenely expensive, but the fines are worse. And in a number of places that I've lived over 50 years of playing music, after I'd become kind of aware of the need to have some sort of permission or licensure in order to go out and play music by other people, okay? Of course, if you're playing songs you wrote or music that you composed or stuff that exists in the public domain, there should be no fear of legal action for having so done. But those particular licensure companies, because they've just had skin in the game for so long and represent so many publishers, they're tough to fight with. And here in the town that I live in now, I know of several people that booked live music in restaurants and clubs and bars that have existed over 30 years we've been here, and they got creamed when somebody turned them in. And I've never been on the receiving end of that kind of a punishment, a legal punishment, financial punishment for providing your customers with some enjoyable music to listen to. But it's a racket. And I do believe that if a person, I'm not willing to really do this much research, but I feel that there are regional rats round and about who have sort of a freelance relationship with these licensing agencies, and as a sort of a supplemental income periodically and very anonymously. I have not quite figured out who the person in this town is that's doing that. One moved away and it's still going on, so I've kind of got it down to 3 people. But as I've said before, I'm not in the business of getting people in trouble. It's not my job. But I do like to know things. At any rate, I have been told that you can be fined as much as $700 per cover song if you don't have that kind of licensure agreement with these guys, right? So here comes,
Carlos, the cover tune man, and he comes in.
And he wants to really hit everybody in the first set with a bunch of stuff that they know and like. So he's up there, hitting Beatles songs and Brown Eyed Girl, Freebird and all that stuff. This isn't a songwriter. This is just a human jukebox. And sitting in the back of the restaurant because the person saw the promotion that this person was going to be playing in the restaurant or wherever, is sitting back there taking pictures and recording audio clips in the back of the room as evidence that the thing that they're going to report occurred. And they're going to cash in. They're going to make a nice little bit of mailbox money off of that. But what bothers me about it is that it is a absolutely horrid betrayal of one's neighbor in a town or city that, where you live. You're ratting out musicians. They're not going to get punished for it. The venue is going to get punished for it. It can put a restaurant out of business or make them downsize staff, And I think that's really bad. I think it's a rotten thing to do. I'm sorry that some very nice people who were providing places where live music could be listened to and where musicians could, make a little change on the side. Tips, small payment for playing there for a couple hours. It's gone. Our town is without music at this point, this small town that I live in. And that's really sad that the effect of one person's sort of monetary gluttony could shut down an art form. Unbelievable. And these people, they don't hide. They're very public influencer kind of people who do this kind of thing. Once a person is in a lot of groups and on a lot of boards and stuff, there's this really bizarre presumption that they can be trusted. Look how many boards and chambers and stuff you're sitting on, right? I don't know. My experience over the years, both in business and education, is that administration is generally corrupt, and that corrupt people cling to one another, Like Kurt Vonnegut said, take the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, from week to week, and the average of those people is you. And birds of a feather and all that stuff, right? And so I'm not cool with that. And I think it's very excellent that a number of businesses who have Sirius FM licensure in order to be able to play radio and, stuff like that, songs in their venues, this new paradigm, the Sirius FM paradigm, Sirius satellite, all those channels and stuff. When you get that kind of licensure for your business, those songs can be played or performed in your venue. And I don't think this is terrifically widespread knowledge yet, but I'm here to tell you that those other folks that license music are probably going to have to come down on their rates. unless the serious people start hitting the bike pump on their own profits and, getting crazy. Don't hire a CEO who likes fentanyl too much. But anyways, so that's my second thing that I wanted to talk about, is the whole notion of making sure that you have a decent type of licensure that will protect your venue from being, it's not really being sued, but I bet it feels like it. A real good brick oven pizza place, relatively new in our town, got clobbered. Another place that was a restaurant up on Kings Highway that we used to enjoy going to, they got clobbered. And some other newer businesses got clobbered too. And I hate that. That's really bad. That's really not cool. And the third and final thing that I want to talk about a little bit here. Third and final thing I want to talk about here is about cover charges at the door in order to offset what would otherwise be a budget line item for a venue that has live music. Okay? And since about the year 2000, this is what I think. This is how I remember it. Since about the year 2000, so now for about a quarter of a century, I've found that when I was younger, the first half of the period of time I've been playing music, charging $1 or $2 at the door, and this was back when $1 or $2 bought more than it does now. Okay, so let's just say $5 to $7 at the door. How about just $5? Okay, $5 today buys what $1 or $2 bought back in 1985. Okay, venues won't have a donation for the band. That's usually what it's called, at the door, as though if somebody puts a $5 bill in there for the band, that's $5 they won't spend on microbrews or coolers or something in there, right? Or food or whatever, which is that's stupid math. That's not ignorant math. That's stupid math. Okay? Because every single person that comes in there is helping your bottom line, because now you don't have to pay that $5 to the band. And I think you're overestimating just how much pushback you're going to get from people if you have somebody there at the door with a bucket with a sign sticking out of it and it says $5 band donation. Right? If somebody can afford to go to a restaurant or afford to go somewhere and indulge in their drinking habits, they can part with $5. They absolutely can part with $5. I can part with $5, and I'm on a fixed income. Right? Whenever I hear about the national average, the national average income, it's forever. Remember, I was a public school teacher. It's always been twice what I've ever made. And yet somehow we're provided for, right? We don't need a lot of money to live because we know how to do a lot of things by ourselves. We didn't raise our children on, Chicken McNuggets and, Mountain Dew, and like a lot of folks seem to do. And life's a lot cheaper when you're not lazy, and also when you just accept the fact that you don't have a lot of money. And it's kind of fun. So anyways, I'd like to argue for more places to grow a pair and let the public compensate the band, or at least offset some of what the band has been guaranteed. You could guarantee the band $200 to go up there and play for 2.5 hours, right? And you're going to keep them from getting thirsty, and you're going to ask people to pitch in $5 as they walk through the door. Okay? Well, if you have a slow night and only 40 people come in there and some of them leave, but each of them pitches $5 in there because they enjoy music for the duration of the time they're there, you've just majorly offset what you told the band you were going to pay them, and it doesn't come out of your pocket anymore. I think it's a wise move. At the very least, people should have the courage to give it a shot, right? Give it a shot. Start with $3. Have some ones on hand for change, right? I think it'll work. It used to work. People like things that are nostalgic. Why don't we get on with treating hardworking traveling musicians, especially the ones that write their own music, like professional blue-collar workers? It's precisely what we are. Tip the band, folks.